Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Hallelujah. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to, we have gone live. We're going to go ahead and get into our youth Torah portion, Torah study. And our youth Torah study today is Emor. Let's go ahead and roll right in.
Picture it. You're Moses. You're standing in front of all these people, the Israelites.
Here we go.
What probably feels like zillions of people. Your job, and it is no small one, is to give the Israelites their laws, what the Torah tells them to do, how to live as Jews in the world. And see, you can't text it, or tweet it, or blog about it. You can't make a YouTube video of it, though set to music it would be kind of awesome. So, new? What are you left with? How are you going to communicate all these complicated rules and laws and guidelines to the zillions of people before you? Ahem, God taps you on the shoulder. Moses, Emor, speak. Well, you heard what God said. Seems you gotta clear your throat because you have a whole lot of talking to do. Suddenly though, maybe you're kind of excited. See, it's like the Israelites, they're just forming this new community, this new way of life. And your job right now is to tell them about all the holidays they get to celebrate. Admit it, there's something way cool about that. It may be rules, but it's rules that are more interesting than, say, income taxes for dummies. It's more like, look, here are all the super cool festivals you get to celebrate. Mark your calendars, your year is about to get a whole lot more interesting. For example, you get to tell the people about Passover. For 7 days, they'll eat only unleavened bread, aka matzah. For 7 days, they'll do no work. No work! Also, we now know, Passover can mean macaroons. But that's kind of cheating, since at the time of this speech, they probably weren't invented yet. Anyway, another one, Sukkot, the Festival of Huts. For 7 days, you will live in a leaf-covered booth. You, once again, must not do any work. And you should rejoice before God, get this guys, with a bouquet of palm branches, myrtle branches, willow leaves, and a citrus fruit. You shake it around in what almost looks like a dance as a part of celebrating this holiday, this Sukkot. The booths are to remind you, and your kids, and your kids' kids, and your kids' kids' kids, that the Israelites lived in booths when God brought them out of slavery in the land of Egypt, and so on and so on. Moses is given a number of holidays to describe to the Israelites. And picture this, you're Moses, and you're talking, and the people are actually getting excited about these holidays. Of course, he doesn't get off that easy. the responsibility for reciting an entire code of law to what seems like a bazillion people is a big and serious one, and it's not all fun and holidays. Like, picture you're Moses and you have to stand in front of the people and go over all the laws for the high priests, the Kohanim, in the temple. And there are a lot of them, too. A priest can't come in contact with the dead, he can't marry a divorcee, and he has to keep his haircut uber short. Or, picture having to tell the people about the capital punishment that is to be applied to a blasphemer, someone who takes God's name in vain. Yikes. Pretty stressful, high-stakes stuff. So really, Emor may seem like it's just about a whole lot of talking, but it's not lip service. It's about Moses talking about festivals and how they work, about punishment and reward, and about building community. Your zillions of Israelite listeners probably applauded when you were done speaking, because they knew that even though it seemed a bit overwhelming, they had the exciting project of becoming the Jewish people ahead of them. And that's a life adventure you kind of really wouldn't want to miss out on.
Take it through
Oh, I can.
I mean, anyway.
You want to do the Torah portion? I can. Whichever.
Okay, take it.
Okay. So let's, Cyril, you are the full team today on the Torah portion.
Are we still on?
Yes, we are. We are live. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about this Torah portion today. So there was a couple of things that I saw that was not completely correct concerning the Torah. That was one about the festival of Pesach and but the festival of foods, she got it correct. The festival of Pesach does not say that we cannot work for 7 days. What it says is that we eat unleavened bread for 7 days. Now, if we choose to have a celebration during the time of the Pesach, we celebrate the Pesach, and then we go through the Feast of Unleavened Bread. If we decided as an assembly we wanted to go away for that period of time, and some people do for the whole 7 days, just like Sukkot. But it's not commanded. What is commanded is that you observe the Pesach between the evenings on that 14th day or the 15th day of the Aviv, of seeing the sighting of the Aviv. There's 3 or 4 things that you have to look for in settling on the time of the Pesach. And then the first day of unleavened bread, we do not work. We have a festival unto the Most High. And the last day of unleavened bread, we have a festival to the Most High. It does nowhere in the Torah does it say that we have to be out of work the days in between those 2 days, the first day and the last day. We are just called that the first day of unleavened bread, the last day of unleavened bread are Sabbaths. So we don't work, and we have a great celebration to the Most High. But we are commanded to eat unleavened bread that entire time. Okay? So it does not say that we cannot work. So that was an error on that part of that Torah portion. And then also it talks about the priests. So with this particular Torah portion, I'm just giving you the disclaimer of what was not said correctly. The priest, they're called to be groomed wet. So it doesn't say that they have to have their hair cut short. What it says is that the priests are to groom themselves wet, and that they're not to cut the corners of their beard. So during that time, they were dealing with Assyrians. The Assyrians historically would make their beards square. They would cut them into a square. Father Yah said, don't square off your beard. Now there is a Ashkenazi or European Jewish tradition that they will leave these locks right here on the sides of their hair, and they do not cut them from birth. So they just grow. They are curls. So usually they'll curl them if their hair is straight, or they do whatever to them. If their hair is naturally curly, then they'll just let those grow. They will not cut those. So they will classify that as the corners of their beard. But really what Father Yah, according to culture and understanding history of the people, we know that it was because those Assyrians and people in those areas that would square their beards off. And Israel was called to be what? Set apart, right? Israel was called to be different from those other priests and worship, people who worship and do worship to other gods. He wanted to make sure that Israel was different. So let's get into this Torah portion. So what are the 4 W's? Cyril? Who? Where? What? Why? Now where is sometimes, where and when is sometimes interchangeable. So sometimes we'll have a where, sometimes we will not have a where, sometimes we may have a when it's important for us to know the time of year or how long was this coming out of Israel. That may be important to our understanding of why Father Yah was saying certain things. So who's the who? Moses and the Israelites, but let's be a little more specific. What is he talking about? Who is he talking to? Leviticus, first of all, give me the Torah portion for this week. Okay, so it's Leviticus 21 to what? To 24. Okay, so we're looking at Leviticus. Let me go in here and just make sure. So you can get an extra credit. Yes, and that's in more, and that's Leviticus 21 through 24. Very good. So what do we start off with in 21? Who is Father pointing to and talking to in Leviticus 21? Moses, but who was he talking? He said this to Moses, but Moses had to say it to who? Not just the Israelites. There's a set apart people that are, say nice and loud, the priests, absolutely. We want to make sure that we know who Father Yahweh is speaking to. He's not speaking to all of the Israelites, but he's speaking to the priests. Now, the priests are who? I'm sorry? The Levites, very good. The Levites. So who is the head of the Levites? Who's the head priest? Aaron, very good. He is called the high priest. So we see it says in 21:1, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron. And it says, to them, no one is to be defiled for the dead among his people. But there is an exception. That's another thing that she got wrong on that Torah portion. So it says that they were not to be defiled by the dead, or in the Torah, in Hebrew, it's mot. Anytime you see the word mot or mem, a vav, and a Tav, I believe it is. I don't think it's a tet, but I think it's a tav. But anyway, it's mot. You're talking about a dead body. So, but there is an exception. What's the exception? Very good, very, very good. If you are related to them, then you can go. Now, if a priest is on priest duty, temple duty, someone else in his family is going to have to do it. So if it's his close family member, mother, father, sister, brother, wife, child, someone who is a relative, then it says in 2, except for his relatives who are nearest to him, for his mother, for his father, for his son, for his daughter, for his brother, and for his maiden sister who is near him, who has no husband. So she cannot be married, because then she becomes the responsibility of her who? Husband and her husband's family. So it says that he will have to go and bury or handle, because somebody's got to handle the dead bodies when somebody passes away. You've got to have somebody to handle them. So if that priest is not on duty and can go and handle his, and actually it doesn't say whether he's on duty or not. So it may be that it's a case if it is his wife or his mother or father, that someone else may take his place, duty at the temple, and then he go and handle his business. But what happens, once he does that, he then will be unclean until the evening. So that is one that's not in this Torah portion, but it is in a later Torah portion. So then it also says, concerning these priests, what is it, who can they marry? Do you remember that? Who? Right. Very good, Cyril. They cannot marry a divorcee, but they can marry a widow of another priest. Correct? Good, very good. So they do not take, that's in 21:7, they do not take a woman who is, it says, defiled woman, or what is called a harlot. They do not take a woman put away by her husband or a divorcee because he is set apart. But it says that they can marry the daughter of a priest, or they can marry, the Levites could only marry a woman from the house of Israel. She could not be one of, like, when they would go to war, and if one of the sons of Naphtali saw a woman and decided she looks favorable to him, he could take her as a bride. All he has to do, she has to cut her hair and cut her nails, and then she mourns her family for a period of 30 days, and then he can take her as his bride and go into her. She can become his wife. But it's not the same with the priest. With a Levitical priest, they must marry a woman who is of the house of Israel. She does not have to be a Levite. Some people say she has to be a Levite. The Torah does not say that. It just says that she has to be of the house of Israel. She's got to be of that bloodline, of one of the 12 sons. And that the only thing is, and he can also take, say for instance, if a priest dies and his wife is left a widow, then another priest can take her as his brother, because it'll be like building up his brother's house, where she may not have she may be young, she may be a young widow, or she could be an older widow, and he just decides he falls in love, they fall in love, he wants to marry her. She can, but he cannot, not a woman who is divorced. but he can take on a widow of a bride. So let's go on. Also, it spoke about, let's talk about the what in the set apart offerings. So Yahweh says in 22:2, speak to Aaron and his sons, and they separate themselves from the set apart offerings of the children of Israel, that they do not profane my name in what they set apart to me. So these offerings had to be what? There's two things they have to be. Absolutely, they have to be set apart and acceptable. That is what the whole book of Leviticus is about. It's about what is set apart and acceptable to the Most High. That is a proper offering. This is why we see in the Brit Hadashah, the new renewed covenant, Paul, Shalom, saying that present yourself a living sacrifice, holy, set apart, and acceptable, which is your reasonable service. He says reasonable service because he's saying this is what a sacrifice has to be in order to be acceptable to the Most High. So now it does talk about some other things. What are some of the other things in this Torah portion it talks about? The feast days, absolutely, very good. But it also talks about clean and unclean, doesn't it? So when something is unclean, can that be presented to the Most High? No, absolutely. It has to be what? Clean, very good. That's acceptable because unclean is unacceptable. It is not acceptable. So it talks about the feast days, and that is Leviticus 23. And that's that's the foundation of this ministry, MHG Learning Center International. It's Leviticus 23. And that's what MHG in Winston-Salem, North Carolina was also founded on, Leviticus 23. And that's the feast days of the Most High. What's the first feast day? Oh, what is the first feast day? What's the number one feast day we have it every week? Very good. Shabbat. That's right. That's the number one feast day. And that's why we see in Leviticus 23:3, it starts out with saying that that is the first feast that begins. Because in 23:2, it says, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings, my appointed times are these. And he starts out with the Sabbath. So we know that's the first feast of the Most High. And then, what's the next feast? Very good. Passover. And then there's something else I talked about, which was the, what comes right after Passover. But, no. The first, and you jumped all the way down to the, down to the end. What? Remember when we went and we did the Passover and we had to eat what? Very good. So what's the next feast after Passover? Very good. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. And we do that for how many days? 7 days. Very good. And we're commanded to eat what? Unleavened bread. We're also commanded not to eat what? Leaven. We're commanded not to eat leaven. So it's not just leavened bread. We can't eat any yeast, any leavening agent. So we go through and we check our ingredients. So it's not just bread, it's anything we are to fast from leaven or yeast. Now, do you remember what yeast represents in the scripture? Do you know what leaven represents? Something that we do that's not good. Starts with an S. Sin, very good. Sin. So leaven represents sin. It represents puffiness. It represents things seeming to be bigger than they really are, or to be more important than they really are. So that's why we hear Yeshua saying, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Because they're puffed up and they speak certain things, but they do others. So that's what we see. So what's the next feast that we see after unleavened bread? We're getting ready to come up on it. Rabbi was just talking about it before we went on. You remember? Oh, you weren't here yet. Okay, so the next one we have coming up is the feast, I'm going to help you, of Shavuot. Or they call it the Feast of Pentecost, it's called. It's the feast of the first fruit, or the gathering together and presenting. The feast is called the Feast of Weeks. So there is a date, time that's in there, which is first fruits, which is not spoken of as a Sabbath, but it is a day that we recognize. And then also, as we get through the Feast of Weeks, we count how many Sabbaths? 7. Very, very good, Cyril. We count 7 completed Sabbaths. And then there's also 50 days that we talk about. 49 days plus 1. That also speaks towards Jubilee. Jubilee is always in that 50th year where slaves or those who are servants or the land, whatever has been given away or has been put into a position of servitude, is now set free. So that Feast of Weeks or Shavuot represents a Jubilee for us. Now what's the next one after Jubilee? And then we'll, very good, the Feast of Trumpets. That's the day that is also spoken of, the day that no man knows the day nor the hour. That's what it's called. The day that no man knows the day nor the hour. So what do we do with Feast of Trumpets? You remember what we did? We blow the shofar, but what do we do in order to know to blow the shofar? Don't we look for something? Yes, we look for that crescent, that sighting of the moon. The Torah says that you look for when you see the new moon. So you have to be able to sight it with your eyes, that little crescent that tells us that the feast has begun. And that gives us our count to the Feast of Sukkot. So after we blow the shofar, we have our big celebration and we eat good food and have a great time. Something happens some days after that, like 10 days after that. Then we have the, you said it, Yom Kippur, very good. We have Yom Kippur, very good. That's the Day of Atonement. And that's when we fast, we afflict our being, and we usually have a mikvah or a celebration at a water source, and we will have an immersion ceremony, and then we'll come back and we'll have our solemn assembly. That's when we ask for forgiveness of our sins, and Father God is representative of Him what? Him, you're giving us forgiveness, but He does what? Cleans us very good. He washes us nice and clean and prepares us for that last feast. And what is that? Absolutely. The Feast of Sukkot. That's a fun feast, huh? Isn't it? That's when we do what? Absolutely. We travel, we go away. And we stay for how many days? 7 days, but there's an additional day that's on the end, which is called, do you know what the last day is called? No, it is a Sabbath, but it's the 8th day. So that last day is called Simcha, we call it Simcha Torah, but it's called the last great day. And that's when we have a big celebration. That's it. It's a great day, but we're kind of sad because it's the end of Sukkot. So we go away for that time and we have a great celebration. And then the last of the Torah portion in the 24, it talks about the Lamb. Do you remember or the temple, the tabernacle? Do you remember the 5 things that are in the temple? And we will finish with that. You remember 5 things? Okay, what's the first one? The altar of incense, very good. The altar. Now there's a lot. The menorah, very good. The light. There's a place where there's some food on it. Take a look. Of showbread, the bread. Don't forget the bread. So the light, the bread, then we have the oil, the bread, the altar of incense, and then there's that really special place that's on the inside, behind the curtain. And what is that called? The holies of holies. That's the holies of holies. And what's in there? Do you remember what's in there? It's in there. It has birds that kind of speak to Moshe as he's sitting there. Starts with an A. It's not the altar. The altar is on the outside of the curtain. The Ark of the Covenant. Very good. Ark of the Covenant. So we're going to end right there. Great job, Cyril. Absolutely great job. Good job. I'm going to give you a hand on that one. Very good. Cyril by himself today.
Okay, I didn't want to continue it, so